Horrid Henry's Haunted House. Francesca Simon. 1. Horrid Henry and the Comfy Black Chair. Ah, Saturday. Best day of the week, thought Horrid Henry, flinging off the covers and leaping out of bed. No school. No homework. A day of TV heaven. Mom and Dad liked sleeping in on a Saturday. So long as Henry and Peter were quiet, they could watch TV until Mom and Dad woke up. Horrid Henry could picture it now. He would stretch out in the comfy black chair, grab the remote control, and switch on the TV. All his favorite shows were on today: Rapper Zapper, Mutant Max, and Gross Out. If he hurried, he would be just in time for Rapper Zapper. He thudded down the stairs and flung open the sitting room door. A horrible sight met his eyes. There, stretched out on the comfy black chair and clutching the remote control, was his younger brother, Perfect Peter. Henry gasped. How could this be? Henry always got downstairs first. The TV was already on. But it was not switched to Rapper Zapper. A terrible tinkly tune trickled out of the TV. Oh no! It was the world's most boring show, Daffy and Her Dancing Daisies. Switch the channel, ordered Henry. Rapper Zapper's on. That's a horrid, nasty program, said Perfect Peter, shuddering. He held tight to the remote. I said switch the channel, hissed Henry. I won't, said Peter. You know the rules. The first one downstairs gets to sit in the comfy black chair and decides what to watch. And I want to watch Daffy. Henry could hardly believe his ears. Perfect Peter was refusing to obey an order? No, screamed Henry. I hate that show. I want to watch Rapper Zapper. Well, I want to watch Daffy, said Perfect Peter. But that's a baby show, said Henry. Dance, my daisies, dance, squealed the revolting Daffy. La, la 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 la, trilled the daisies. La, la 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 la, sang Peter. Baby, baby, taunted Henry. If only he could get Peter to run upstairs crying, then he could get the chair. Peter is a baby, Peter is a baby, jeered Henry. Peter kept his eyes glued to the screen. Horrid Henry could stand it no longer. He pounced on Peter, snatched the remote, and pushed Peter onto the floor. He was Rapper Zapper liquidating a pesky android. "Ah!" screamed Perfect Peter. "Moo-um!" Horrid Henry leaped into the comfy black chair and switched channels. "Grr!" growled Rapper Zapper, blasting a baddie. "Don't be horrid, Henry," shouted Mum, storming through the door. "Go to your room." "No," wailed Henry. "Peter started it." "Now," screamed Mum. "La, la 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 la," trilled the daisies. Buzz. Horrid Henry switched off the alarm. It was 6 a.m. the following Saturday. Henry was taking no chances. Even if he had to grit his teeth and watch Rise and Shine before Gross Out started, it was worth it. And he'd seen the coming attractions for today's Gross Out, who could eat the most cherry pie in 5 minutes while blasting the other contestants with a goose shooter. Henry couldn't wait. There was no sound from Peter's room. Ha, ha, thought Henry. He'll have to sit on the lumpy sofa and watch what I want to watch. Horrid Henry skipped into the sitting room. And stopped. "Remember, children, always eat with a knife and fork," beamed a cheerful presenter. It was manners with Maggie. There was Perfect Peter in his slippers and dressing gown, stretched out on the comfy black chair. Horrid Henry felt sick. Another Saturday ruined. He had to watch Gross Out. He just had to. Horrid Henry was just about to push Peter off the chair when he stopped. Suddenly, he had a brilliant idea. Peter! Mom and Dad want to see you. They said it's urgent. Perfect Peter leaped off the comfy black chair and dashed upstairs. Tee-hee, thought Horrid Henry. Zap! Welcome to Gross Out, shrieked the presenter, Marvin the Maniac. Boy, will you all be feeling sick today? It's gross. 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 Yeah, said Horrid Henry. This was great. Perfect Peter reappeared. They didn't want me, said Peter. And they're cross because I woke them up. They told me they did, said Henry, eyes glued to the screen. Peter stood still. Please give me the chair back, Henry. Henry didn't answer. I had it first, said Peter. Shut up, I'm trying to watch, said Henry. You wow, gross, screamed the TV audience. I was watching Manners with Maggie, said Peter. She's showing how to eat soup without slurping. Tough, said Henry. Oh, gross, he chortled, pointing at the screen. Peter hid his eyes. Moo-you-a-wum, shouted Peter. Henry's being mean to me. Mom appeared in the doorway. She looked furious. Henry, go to your room, shouted Mom. We were trying to sleep. Is it too much to ask to be left in peace one morning a week? But Peter dash. Mom pointed to the door. Out, said Mom. It's not fair, howled Henry, stomping off. Zap. And now Kate, our guest manners expert, will demonstrate the proper way to butter toast. Henry slammed the door behind him as hard as he could. Peter had got the comfy black chair for the very last time. Buzz. Horrid Henry switched off the alarm. It was 2 a.m. the following Saturday. The Gross Out Championships were on in the morning. He grabbed his pillow and duvet and sneaked out of the room. He was taking no chances. Tonight he would sleep in the comfy black chair. After all, Mom and Dad had never said how early he could get up. Henry tiptoed out of his room into the hall. All quiet in Peter's room. All quiet in Mom and Dad's. Henry crept down the stairs and carefully opened the sitting room door. The room was pitch black. Better not turn on the light, thought Henry. He felt his way along the wall until his fingers touched the back of the comfy black chair. He felt around the top. Ah, there was the remote. He'd sleep with that under his pillow, just to be safe. Henry flung himself onto the chair and landed on something lumpy. H, screamed Henry. H, screamed the lump. Help, screamed Henry and the lump. Feet pounded down the stairs. What's going on down there? Shouted Dad, switching on the light. Henry blinked. Henry jumped on my head, sniveled a familiar voice beneath him. Henry, what are you doing? Said Dad. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Henry's brain whirled. I thought I heard a burglar, so I crept down to keep watch. Henry's lying, said Peter, sitting up. He came down because he wanted the comfy black chair. Liar, said Henry. And what were you doing down here? I couldn't sleep and I didn't want to wake you, Dad, said Peter. So I came down as quietly as I could to get a drink of water. Then I felt sleepy and lay down for a moment. I'm very sorry, Dad, it will never happen again. All right, said Dad, stifling a yawn. From now on, you are not to come down here before 7 a.m. or there. Will be no TV for a week. Is that clear? Yes, Dad, said Peter. Yeah, muttered Henry. He glared at Perfect Peter. Perfect Peter glared at Horrid Henry. Then they both went upstairs to their bedrooms and closed the doors. Good night, called Henry cheerfully. My, I'm sleepy. But Henry did not go to bed. He needed to think. He could wait until everyone was asleep and sneak back down. But what if he got caught? No TV for a week would be unbearable. But what if he missed the gross-out championships? And never found out if Tank Thomas or Tapioca Tina won the day? Henry shuddered. There had to be a better way. He had it. He would set his clock ahead and make sure he was first down. Brilliant. Gross out, here I come, he thought. But wait. What if Peter had the same brilliant idea? That would spoil everything. Henry had to double-check. Henry opened his bedroom door. The coast was clear. He tiptoed out and sneaked into Peter's room. There was Peter, sound asleep. And there was his clock. Peter hadn't changed the time. Phew. And then Henry had a truly wicked idea. It was so evil and so horrid that for a moment even he hesitated. But hadn't Peter been horrible and selfish, stopping Henry watching his favorite shows? He certainly had. And wouldn't it be great if Peter got into trouble, just for once? Perfect Peter rolled over. La, la 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 la, he warbled in his sleep. That did it. Horrid Henry moved Peter's clock an hour ahead. Then Henry sneaked downstairs and turned up the TV's volume as loud as it would go. Finally, he opened Mom and Dad's door and crept back to bed. It's Grow and Show. The vegetable show for tinies. Just look at all these lovely vegetables. The terrible noise boomed through the house, blasting Henry out of bed. Henry, bellowed Dad. Come here this instant. Henry sauntered into his parents' bedroom. What is it? He asked, yawning loudly. Mom and Dad looked confused. Wasn't that you watching TV downstairs? No, said Henry, stretching. I was asleep. Mom looked at Dad. Dad looked at Mom. You mean Peter is downstairs watch TV at 6 a.m.? Henry shrugged. Send Peter up here this minute, said Dad. For once Henry did not need to be asked twice. He ran downstairs and burst into the sitting room. I grew carrots. I grew string beans. Peter! Mom and Dad want to see you right away, said Henry. Peter didn't look away from Grow and Show. Peter! Dad asked me to send you up. You're just trying to trick me, said Peter. You'd better go or you'll be in big trouble, said Henry. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, said Peter. I'm not moving. Now, just look at all these beautiful tomatoes Timmy's grown, squealed the TV. Wow, said Peter. Don't say I didn't warn you, said Henry. Peter, bellowed Dad. No TV for a month. Come here this minute. Perfect Peter burst into tears. He jumped from the chair and crept out of the room. Horrid Henry sauntered over to the comfy black chair and stretched out. He picked up the remote and switched channels. Zap! Rapper Zapper stormed into the spaceship and pulverized some alien slime. Way to go, Rapper Zapper, shrieked. Horrid Henry. Soon gross out would be on. Wasn't life sweet? 2. Horrid Henry's haunted house. No way, shrieked Horrid Henry. He was not staying the weekend with his slimy cousin Stuck-up Steve, and that was that. He sat in the back seat of the car with his arms folded. Yes, you are, said Mom. Steve can't wait to see you, said Dad. This was not exactly true. After Henry had sprayed Steve with green goo last Christmas and helped himself to a few of Steve's presents, Steve had sworn revenge. Under the circumstances, Henry thought it would be a good idea to keep out of Steve's way. And now Mom had arranged for him to spend the weekend while she and Dad went off on their own. Perfect Peter was staying with Tidy Ted, and he was stuck with Steve. It's a great chance for you boys to become good friends, she said. Steve is a very nice boy. I feel sick, said Henry, coughing. Stop faking, said Mom. You were well enough to play football all morning. I'm too tired, said Henry, yawning. I'm sure you'll get plenty of rest at Aunt Ruby's, said Dad firmly. I'm not going, howled Henry. Mom and Dad took Henry by the arms, dragged him to rich Aunt Ruby's door, and rang the bell. The massive door opened immediately. Welcome, Henry, said rich Aunt Ruby, giving him a great smacking kiss. Henry, how lovely to see you, said Stuck-up Steve sweetly. That's a very nice second-hand jumper you're wearing. Hush, Steve, said rich Aunt Ruby. I think Henry looks very smart. Henry glared at Steve. Thank goodness he'd remembered his goose shooter. He had a feeling he might need it. Goodbye, Henry, said Mom. Be good. Ruby, thank you so much for having him. Our pleasure, lied Aunt Ruby. The great door closed. Henry was alone in the house with his archenemy. Henry looked grimly at Steve. What a horrible boy, he thought. Steve looked grimly at Henry. What a horrible boy, he thought. Why don't you both go upstairs and play in Steve's room till supper's ready, said Aunt Ruby. I'll show Henry where he's sleeping first, said Steve. Good idea, said Aunt Ruby. Reluctantly, Henry followed his cousin up the wide staircase. I bet you're scared of the dark, said Steve. Course I'm not, said Henry. That's good, said Steve. This is my room, he added, opening the door to an enormous bedroom. Horrid Henry stared longingly at the shelves filled to bursting with zillions of toys and games. Of course all my toys are brand new. Don't you dare touch anything, hissed Steve. They're all mine and only I can play with them. Henry scowled. When he was king he'd use Steve's head for target practice. They continued all the way to the top. Goodness, this old house was big, thought Henry. Steve opened the door to a large attic bedroom with brand new pink and blue flowered wallpaper, a 4-poster bed, an enormous polished wood wardrobe, and 2 large windows. You're in the haunted room, said Steve casually. Great, said Henry. I love ghosts. It would take more than a silly ghost to frighten him. Don't believe me if you don't want to, said Steve. Just don't blame me when the ghost starts wailing. You're nothing but a big fat liar, said Henry. He was sure Steve was lying. He was absolutely sure Steve was lying. He was 1,000,000% sure that Steve was lying. He's just trying to pay me back for Christmas, thought Henry. Steve shrugged. Suit yourself. See that stain on the carpet? Henry looked down at something brownish. That's where the ghost vaporized, whispered Steve. Of course, if you're too scared to sleep here, Henry would rather have walked on hot coals than admit being scared to Steve. He yawned, as if he'd never heard anything so boring. I'm looking forward to meeting the ghost, said Henry. Good, said Steve. Supper, boys, called Aunt Ruby. Henry lay in bed. Somehow he'd survived the dreadful meal and stuck up Steve's bragging about his expensive clothes, toys, and trainers. Now here he was, alone in the attic at the top of the house. He jumped into bed, carefully avoiding the faded brown patch on the floor. He was sure it was just spilled cola or something, but just in case. Henry looked around him. The only thing he didn't like was the huge wardrobe opposite the bed. It loomed up in the darkness at him. You could hide a body in that wardrobe, thought Henry, then rather wished he hadn't. Ooh. Henry stiffened. Had he just imagined the sound of someone moaning? Silence. Nothing, thought Henry, snuggling down under the covers. Just the wind. Ooh. This time the moaning was a fraction louder. The hairs on Henry's neck stood up. He gripped the sheets tightly. Ha-ah-ha-ha. Henry sat up. Ha-ah-ha. The ghostly breathy moaning sound was not coming from outside. It appeared to be coming from inside the giant wardrobe. Quickly, Henry switched on the bedside light. What am I going to do? Thought Henry. He wanted to run screaming to his aunt. But the truth was, Henry was too frightened to move. Some dreadful moaning thing was inside the wardrobe, just waiting to get him. And then horrid Henry remembered who he was. Leader of a pirate gang. Afraid of nothing except injections. I'll just get up and check inside that wardrobe, he thought. Am I a man or a mouse? Mouse. He thought. He did not move. Hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-ea, moaned. The thing. The unearthly noises were getting louder. Shall I wait here for IT to get me, or shall I make a move first? Thought Henry. Silently, he reached under the bed for his goose shooter. Then slowly, he swung his feet over the bed. Tiptoe. Tiptoe. Holding his breath, horrid Henry stood outside the wardrobe. Ha 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 ha. Henry jumped. Then he flung open the door and fired. Splat! Ha 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 ha. The wardrobe was empty. Except for something small and green and black on the top shelf. It looked like it was. Henry reached up and took it. It was a cassette player. Covered in green goo. Inside was a tape. It was called Dr. Jekyll's Spooky Sounds. Steve, thought horrid Henry grimly. Revenge. Did you sleep well, dear? Asked Aunt Ruby at breakfast. Like a log, said Henry. No strange noises? Asked Steve. No, smiled Henry sweetly. Why, did you hear something? Steve looked disappointed. Horrid Henry kept his face blank. He couldn't wait for the evening. Horrid Henry spent a busy day. He went ice skating. He went to the cinema. He played football. After supper, Henry went straight to bed. It's been a lovely day, he said. But I'm tired. Good night, Aunt Ruby. Good night, Steve. Good night, Henry, said Ruby. Steve ignored him. But Henry did not go to his bedroom. Instead, he sneaked into Steve's. He wriggled under Steve's bed and lay there, waiting. Soon Steve came into the room. Henry resisted the urge to reach out and see Steve's skinny leg. He had something much scarier in mind. He heard Steve putting on his blue bunny pajamas and jumping into bed. Henry waited until the room was dark. Steve lay above him, humming to himself. Dooby 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 doo, sang Steve. Slowly, Henry reached up and ever so slightly poked the mattress. Silence. Dooby 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 doo, sang Steve, a little more quietly. Henry reached up and poked the mattress again. Steve sat up. Then he lay back. Henry poked the mattress again, ever so slightly. Must be my imagination, muttered Steve. Henry allowed several moments to pass. Then he twitched the duvet. Mummy, whimpered Steve. Jab. Henry gave the mattress a definite poke. Screw.